Welcome to a very special Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast because we are here with our former FiOS comrades. And one of them just disappeared on me. But we're all here and we're going to talk. Now there he is. I don't know why that happened, Brian. You flipped to the bottom, but no matter. It's all going to be fun and we're gonna start yapping here on the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And if you'd like, you can support the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast by shopping on Amazon and using our affiliate link that's pinned to the top of the chat board, or is on the descriptor to this podcast. It's very easy and doesn't cost you an extra dime. You just buy your stuff, and Amazon throws us back a little bit of coin for sending you there. And we appreciate your support of the Joe and Joe Weather Show podcast. And three of us are here. One of us is in black in the moment in the lower right. But Geoff Bansen will be joining us shortly. And then Addison Green had a bit of a family issue that came up, and he said he's going to try to come in a little bit later. So we can, Brian, you've got the floor to yourself until His Eminence arrives. So it's been 5 years, almost to
Wow.
the day, and it went pretty fast, and a lot of things have happened in the 5 years. And Brian was le fromage grand, or the big cheese of FiOS1 Weather. He was the department head, and a great department head he was, because I've always told him that I was really so thankful that I got hired at FiOS1 News, and Brian was very happy to bring me aboard. So, that at least let me finish my career on a solid note. And, I've never forgotten that, by the way. But, I guess Joe, myself, we've all gone slightly different routes afterwards. Us being here, and you uh, went into teaching, and
Yeah.
you're teaching earth science, and I'm curious as to what uh, differences. It's a different. Obviously, it's a different world and a different approach. You're broadcasting in a different way, so I'm curious about your impressions with regards to what you're doing now versus what you were doing.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'll start by just saying thank you to both of you guys for having me on. Pleasure. I mean, when you said it was 5 years, I was kind of, I don't think I realized that. And so that's kind of wild to me. But
Well,
it,
Joe and I haven't aged at all. I mean,
not a
not
bit.
not not a.
I think you guys might have got younger.
We went in reverse.
But I'll tell you, I appreciate the compliments, but really, like in terms of that, it was kind of all on my end, in terms of the pleasure of it. Like, to have on the team, first bringing on yourself, and then when Joe Rao was able to join the team, we went from kind of being like a young squad to really being like a solid weather team in the New York area that I think like initially people weren't taking that seriously. And all of a sudden they were like, whoa, like these guys aren't playing around, like they've brought in some heavy hitters here. We were putting on weather specials and we were down at the Emmy Awards. And so we had some really cool stuff for a couple years there. And in terms of having you guys there to support that was huge for me, because it's a burden a little bit being in that spot because a lot of pressure weighs on you. But having you two guys there who've kind of been through the ringer of this stuff before made a huge difference. So I just want you guys to know how much I appreciate the both of you. And it's funny though. So to answer your question, the turn to teaching, interestingly, in many ways, it's kind of a similar job, except that they could talk back to you.
Right.
viewers do.
Well,
But
in the world of social media, they talk back to us now as
well, now they
well.
do. Yeah. So now people are talking back. So I guess it is the same.
Right. Except that we don't
Um,
physically see them.
yeah. But it's I will tell you I don't really have any regrets. Do I miss television sometimes? The truth is I do. But the job I'm doing now is also very rewarding, and I get to keep myself really in the realm of science and weather, earth science. For those of the people watching that don't know, in New York State anyway, covers like three big topics. It's astronomy, weather, and geology. So weather is really taking up, like weather and climate, taking up like a third of the year. So I really do get to build on that passion, especially with the students who are really into it. Last year, I taught a brand new, we launched a solo course, strictly meteorology, which was really cool. So, we got to really get the kids in there that wanted to be studying weather and that kind of stuff. So yeah, a lot's happened. I kept my foot in the door for a bit there too. I was working with News 12, but I've got three boys, 12 being the oldest, and so life is busy. So right now I've cut it down to just teaching. But
You not only worked part time for a while at News 12, but you were with the NBC network, weren't you? You were working
yeah,
on.
I bounced around a bit. Like early in my career, I had started my career with News 12, and Joe remembers that because there's the famous time when Joe went away to Florida and the tornado hit.
Oh no!
um, and then I did that. That was me just kind of cutting my teeth in the industry. News 12 was nice enough. That was in 2005 to just kind of let me do some freelancing. And then I ended up landing a full-time gig out in Scranton, Pennsylvania with WBRE, which was an NBC affiliate out there. So I did 3 years with them out there. And then I came back to New York. I was with Fios1 for, gosh, I think actually 10 years was the number. I was with Fios1. And then when FiOS1 folded and went under, I did some work with News 12 as I transitioned into teaching. And I think what Joe is referring to is during that time as well, I did a lot of freelance weather producing work with the Today Show, which was also a really interesting experience. Because I'd never really, besides like internships, worked at a network level where they were broadcasting kind of out to the whole country. So that was an interesting perspective, to say the least.
I didn't know that you worked on the Today Show because the well my second job, and I would probably say probably my first, not that my first job was not a real job, it was when I was working as an intern at WCBS TV. But in 1980, I worked on the started in 1980 to 1982. I worked on the Today Show with Willard Scott, and it was I was only 20 years old. I was doing college, interning at the Weather Service, and then I wound up working over at on the Today Show. And it's the network level was a whole different world. I mean, it
Yeah,
was just a totally different world. I had uh, one experience that always stuck with me was the fact that everything at that time. I mean, everything was union. Okay, everything was unionized,
sure.
and we were in Detroit for the Republican National Convention, and it was one of the first times um, that where a full show was actually taken on remote, and we were broadcasting out of the I forgot the name of the big fancy hotel that's right in the downtown area. It was a beautiful hotel, gorgeous, and there was an incident where the TV monitor, okay, and in 1980 what a TV set looked like and how much they weighed. I mean, they were not light things like they
No.
are now. Well, it was on it was on a table, and for whatever reason, I was standing near the table, and the TV set started to slide off, and it was about halfway off, and kind of just started to tilt down to fall, and I grabbed it. And I have to tell you, I was chewed out like you would not believe. The station manager came at me, screaming at me. I said the TV set was sliding off the table and I caught it before it fell. You don't touch any of the electronic equipment. If you see something, if it falls, you let it fall. You let it break into a million pieces." And I was like,
Absolutely.
really? I mean, seriously? But that's the world
I
that I started
Yeah.
in that day.
I got the same treatment when I went to WABC radio, and for a short time, the company that I was working for, we supplied weather forecast to WABC, and whoever it was showing us around or whatever, and I just, here's the desk and all the control and everything, and I just happened to touch the microphone, just touched it. I didn't grab it. I didn't lift it up. I touched it. And the guy said, "Don't ever do that." I said, "Why? Is it radioactive or whatever like that?" And it was like union rules that you were not allowed to touch any equipment if you're not a member of the union. It's incredible. You're absolutely right, Joe.
Where was that, Joe? I'm sorry, I missed that part. Where,
WABC 77 radio.
oh, well,
Ah.
When I worked at Pix, I couldn't I couldn't do my own mics. But I remember from my past experience, and the Pix guys, the technical people were terrific. I mean, they really were. But they would have to come and mic me, and they'd have two people working, you know, with mics, and one of them's job was to actually break the mics. They would test two mics, connected together, so in case two separate units, in case one went out, they had the backup. And he'd have to put it on the back of my pants in the belt, and then mic my tie. I think I used to take the lavalier and put it on my tie myself, but then he or she would straighten it out. But I got used to that treatment, for a while. I was like, "Oh, this is wonderful." you know, Go ahead, you knock yourself out. Do what you got to do. Uh, I, I, but that was at a that was at a time where there were still a lot of people working on a show, and I remember how when I started, there were maybe about 20 people in the control room, and then by the time um, when I left, and then I came back and I was doing fill-in at a certain point, it was down to like three people, in terms of doing the technical stuff in the control room. And then the mic people were still there, but only one. You went from four cameramen to one or two, and then they got the robotics in. So that was just
Yeah.
and I'm sure I haven't been in a TV studio for 5 years, so I don't even. I'm sure it's even more
Yeah, well,
so the
it's
case
a
now.
changing world. Like I know when I came in 2005, things were really starting to switch where you were seeing a lot of markets combining stations. So, like for example, like when I got out to Pennsylvania in Scranton, actually it was in Wilkes-Barre, but Scranton was the market. Um, they had just combined at WBRE, which was the NBC affiliate, with WYOU, which was the CBS affiliate. So they took them and kind of housed them in the same place with kind of the promise at first, right? That like they're going to be in the same place, they'll share some resources, but they're separate, right? And then a couple years down the road, sharing newscasts, couple years past that, simulcast across both boards, right? And I feel like that trend has just kind of skyrocketed across the country, which is unfortunate to say the least. I guess it is a sign of the times. Ad revenue's not there anymore, and you got to do what you got to do. But it was an interesting time to come into TV because a lot of the people who had been there for years would tell you what it used to be like, and then I was seeing this like transition towards the new world of television, which is like, no, you go out and shoot your own story, edit it yourself, and then send it back in, and hopefully it turns out okay. So not only could you touch the equipment, like you'd be yelled at if you didn't.
I will, Joe, did you have a question? Did you want to jump in?
No, I'm just
No,
listening.
I wondered. I wonder now. Now, of course, I'll ask this question where you know there's 65-year-old me, and I wonder if I were at an age right now where I would be um, wanting to do television, would I go ahead and do it, knowing what I know now? Uh, would I go ahead and do it with the technology the way it is, with uh, you walking around with your phone, shooting your own stuff. I don't know that I would want to do that.
Yeah, well, I remember like I knew after leaving there that I really didn't want to land a weekend gig somewhere because I knew at most of these affiliates, at least the smaller to mid-range ones, and it's even happening in larger markets now, that the weekend meteorologist was basically turning into a one-man band kind of reporter shooter in the weekdays. And I had already kind of decided like I did not want to do that. And I think that's kind of where you're getting at, Joe, because that's really what the industry has turned into. Like it is it for all intents and purposes, it is a considerably busier job than it was when I first started in 2005 compared to when I left News 12 a couple years ago. It went from being like, you do the 6 o'clock news, you do the 11 o'clock news, and in between, you get some stuff ready or whatever, but like to like a full, like you were moving the entire time. By the time I had left News 12, like it was a really busy 9-hour shift, including social media, lots of posting, lots of website work, and then continuous hits, like many more than there were in the early days.
Oh yeah. In fact, I was offered the opportunity. They pink slipped many people. They being the new owners of what was
Right.
once Cablevision, and they called. I was called into the news director's office, Janine Rose, with the human resources person there. And by the way, human resources rarely are they ever human, and they are
Father,
incredibly resourceful.
right, exactly. The ultimate oxymoron.
And
Neither
they
human nor resourceful.
and they said we want to keep you because we are told that you are very popular around here. And I said, well, that's nice. I said, so we'd like to offer you a position to stay with the company. Oh, and by the way, since we're phasing out the Connecticut bureau that was up in Norwalk, you're going to have to do Connecticut weather as well as Lower Hudson Valley weather. And since we're not going to be in Yonkers anymore, we're going to move out and consolidate in Woodbury, Long Island, which is right on the Suffolk Nassau County border line, which would have meant for me, and Joe can relate to this because he had a very similar situation when he was traveling to Fios1. It would have doubled my time to get to work, and also I would have had double the workload. In addition, as you mentioned, Brian, the new owners they piled all kinds of stuff on us. Not only do we have to do our regular TV, we have to take care of social media, Twitter, Facebook, update at a moment's notice if there was a thunderstorm watch or warning or whatever. It really was too much. And in retrospect, while I, tried after FiOS1 was phased out, while I tried to get back into television, in retrospect, looking back on it now, I'm happy I didn't get that opportunity because I would have been a wreck. What they
Yeah.
all of you who watch television and watch your favorite newscasters, you have no clue what they are being asked to do. Certainly, when Joe and I got started in radio and television many moons ago, it really was nothing, no big deal. But now it's crazy. From the moment you step into that office building or that where the TV is being put up, from the moment you walk in, you're automatically doing stuff, and you really don't have much time to do anything else until it's time for you to punch out.
We have, by the
Yeah. And
way, well, I'm sorry, Brian. I just want to introduce the
yeah, go
fact
ahead.
that apparently Jeffrey thought this was a exercise show and has show,
Look at the
show,
guns, though.
showed up. Yeah, I'm stunned actually. Jeffrey, put a, put a shirt on and a tie for God's sake. We're a respectable show. Are you
He's on
coming
mute. I
back?
guess he doesn't want to talk. It looks like he's on the
You're on
move.
mute.
Rich Rosmansky on the
You're
chat board
on
says,
mute,
Richard Simmons is
Jeffrey.
I wasn't. Yes. Hi. I'm here. Can you hear
Okay,
me?
we hear you now.
I mean, there really wasn't much to say over you guys just absolutely ridiculing me to the wolves there.
Well,
Jeff sounds like he's on the moon.
I
One
know.
small step for Jeff.
Well, actually, one large rep for Jeff because that's what he's been doing.
Yes.
Are you coming from the gym?
So, I I'm trying to go back in the buffer here, and I took mental notes of everything that was talked about so far. But going back to the pre-show, and Brian was like, "Well, Geoff's probably at work," and I'm like thinking to myself, "Well, I am at a type of work right now. I'm on a very strict diet and exercise regimen right now.
Okay.
I forgot that it coincided with the show, but you guys beautifully took up the time that it took me to join anyway. I wasn't going to jump in on some of the great stuff that Brian was talking about, some of the great stuff that you guys are talking about as far as the state of the industry and teaching and all of that great stuff. But I am going to, I'm heading home to grab quick dinner, put the baby to bed, and then head back to work. So, but I'm
Oh,
here,
okay.
right?
All right. Well, don't get into a wreck. Pay attention to what you're doing, for God's sake.
I am only a few minutes away from the house anyway, so I'll probably be. I will go in. I will put a tie on if it
Oh, you don't have to
suits
put
the
it.
audience.
You don't have to put a tie on. I'm sure our
No, I know you
audience is
moved to the mountains of Georgia. I mean, it's like you've never been to the beach before.
with that analogy. You should be in overalls that never get washed.
That never.
We should point out that Geoff, who was fairly successful for a while, both at FiOS1 and also at News 12.
Oh yes, I'm not at all successful anymore, Joe. You were absolutely right.
Well, you jumped the gun, Geoff.
No. I'm joking. I'm joking. Continue, please.
He's now in Providence, Rhode Island, and that's a fairly nice market and quite successful there, from what I heard.
Thank you. Listen, I may have the title of Big Cheese like Mr. Fitzgerald before me had. I'll be lucky by the end of my tenure if I can even scratch the surface of how good of a chief that he was. So everything that Joe said, I know Brian is modest, but Joe, you hit the ball out of the park with that. You right on the head.
Which Joe? There's two of us.
I can't recall Joe Rao saying nice things about Brian, though I'm sure that he did. But I remember I told you I was taking mental notes. I was referring to the soliloquy that Mr. Cioffi gave about bringing when you first came on to the FiOS staff, and kind of talking about the evolution of how we went from just kind of there to wow, we're a powerhouse all of a sudden.
By the way, I'm getting an absolute kick out of reading these comments.
How are you?
Geoff looks like an Uber driver.
Jeffrey,
you guys should be thanking me for this. I'm driving up the viewership and hopefully the revenue.
I wouldn't have this any other way. This is spectacular.
No, it really is. They're letting you keep your and by the way, just for the record, I am all for facial hair. Okay, I am all for facial hair. I grew my goatee several times since the from the let's say from the year 2000 on when I was at Pix, and then also in one instance when I went on vacation and came back at FiOS, and was told both times to shave it off. Now of course that I'm not on TV, you see guys with beards and goatees all the time. Did they give you a hard time for that, or are you doing the no shave November thing as an excuse?
That is correct. I'm glad you got to it. For those of you who know me regularly on the feed that are watching tonight, I'm usually very clean shaven. You can actually see it here. I'm at a red light, so you can see how Blackbeard. It's crazy how dark and thick it comes in. I haven't seen it in I don't know when I did do this last year as well. And by the way, we raised over $1,000 for a great local charity. We're not quite halfway there this year, but I know we've kind of got it's like election night. A lot of ballots pour in after midnight. We're going to get a lot of donations that pour in the last week of the month here. So I think we'll finish strong. But listen, as the second it stops being of use and the second it stops raising money for a good cause, it is out of here.
Nah, it looks good.
For somebody, Jeffrey, who on his first job said he had absolutely no interest to be on the air, you've done quite well for yourself. You know you know what I'm talking about, right?
Well, yes, yes and no, but I know exactly what the way that you mean it. So when I graduated college, I was in fairly incessant about wanting to be on the air.
Right.
But through trials and tribulations and the typical struggle of a Northeast kid wanting to start on TV in the Northeast, that's kind of not the reality of things. And I always say I wish I was the way I am now as far as traveling and being able to live anywhere and go anywhere. I wish I was that way post college. Although, who knows if my life would have taken the same path. So I don't want to say that completely, but I just wasn't ready to go to Oklahoma or Iowa or wherever I needed to go to kind of cut my teeth. And I found out very quickly how tough that was. So I kind of lost the spark of wanting to be on TV. And so by the time things came around and you were like, Jeffrey, are you still looking towards, by the way, nobody calls me Jeffrey, but Joe Cioffi is like a dad. He can call me whatever he wants. And
I love Jeff. Jeff,
fun,
you know I love you.
Of course. But back to what I was saying. Yeah, you said, do you still want to be on air? And I was like, so at the time I was in Philadelphia. I was also producing for for an affiliate, which was a big thing. It wasn't quite national, although I wound up doing that. Funny enough, we can talk about that later. But I was like, I kind of buried the dream, if you will. And then you say, well, I may have an opportunity. By the way, I just realized I'm still raising my hand here, like I'm in classroom. So let me lower that. But
well, as long as Brian doesn't acknowledge you to answer, then you're okay.
Right, exactly. But in any case, you said, there it is. We may have an opportunity. And right around that time, when I was at CBS Philadelphia, I had come to be working with a director who was very, interested in my career aspirations. And he was like, well, listen, if you ever want to make a tape after the show or, in an off time, I'm more than happy to get the control room rolling for you and, turn the cameras and lights on. So one day I took him up on that. And I believe this was, if not the same month of coming to FiOS, it was shortly before it. When I came and interviewed with Brian and met the team, it kind of rekindled it for me when one of those sessions I get done and he comes to me and very sincerely goes, Jeff, if, you're a little rough around the edges, but like the meat and potatoes are there. If you want to like work at this, I could very easily see you even doing like a weekend gig at a station as big as this. And I knew he wasn't blowing smoke up my butt.
Yeah, well,
I knew he was being. I could tell he was being genuine.
Up your tank top. Go on.
I have a very good BS radar, so I know it because it takes one to know one, as they say.
Yes. We have.
By the way, I've got to read this comment. This one is from Mac, which, by the way, miss you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. He says, Jeff late and no tie reminds me of FiOS days. I don't remember you not wearing a tie though at FiOS, so I don't know about that one, but.
Wait, is that Mac?
No. You know who the king of king of the no tie is? Addison Green.
Yes.
And Addison made it popular. We worked for our bosses at FiOS were very. Not only were they very suit and tie, absolutely, but they were very, presidential colors: red, blue, purple. I can remember numerous occasions my clothing allowance. Something as simple as, listen, I wasn't going out there trying to wear that snowflake suit. All I wanted was a tie with certain patterns and to jazz it up a little bit. And many times they said, nah, that's a little too much. Let's find something a little bit more contemporary. So, and then Addison comes in, I'm going to go no tie Fridays. I did it for a while at my current job, and then we got a new GM, and he was again more of the traditional family. So, but I mean, look at someone like Sam Champion. Wears turtlenecks. Wears whatever. I mean, whatever he wants. I mean,
Well,
it's a whole new
well,
world. Yeah.
you can't say. He's at a certain age where he's got to hide, this area. Of course, I have great genetics. I don't have that problem. It's all smooth.
I was just thinking that.
Well, I hope you all enjoyed my rendition of the Cash Cab.
Yes.
Yeah, Geoff, if you could pick someone up and interview them live, that would be spectacular.
Or either that, or just really play the role of an Uber driver.
Right,
Yes.
right.
By the way, I am so excited that Mac is on the chat board.
I saw Mrs. Mac last week at Addison Green's baby shower.
Oh, you did?
I did.
Yeah.
How great is that? It's like our version of high school sweethearts, FiOS sweethearts that get married.
Cool.
Well, I wrote a message to Mac, and he understands it. What I said was I before E, except after C, lest it sounds like an A as a neighbor or way. He knows what I'm talking about with that. That's an inside thing between he and I. So I'm curious, with the perspective that we all have. Okay, you, Geoff, working, although not dressed appropriately for work, but no matter. Brian,
I'll be right back.
Okay, go put your tie on. I got to hold my question. By the way, Addison was also known for his socks. Does he always?
I just want to say about Brian. He had mentioned this near the beginning of our get together, that it was, I think, in 2007. My family and I, we went on vacation, and one of the places that the place that we went to take the kids was Disney World. Now, this is July, and I wasn't too pleased about going to Disney World in July, because if you've ever been there, it changes its name in July to Muggy World, and it was very muggy, very humid. We did have occasional afternoon thunderstorms, but the kids were happy. They were very pleased. They were enjoying themselves. So okay, so we're in Florida, and then one afternoon or one evening when we got back to our hotel, I see the little red light on the phone flashing, and I pick it up because there was somebody left a message for us, and it was my mom. And she said, "Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying yourselves. It's really great for you to be down there. By the way, Joe, did you hear that Westchester County got hit by a big tornado today?" And as soon as I heard that, I dropped the phone, and I'm saying to myself, "What? What?" And very quickly I found out what happened. But we were very fortunate, the fact that, the chief meteorologist at News 12 Westchester was not there, but filling in my place was the future chief meteorologist at FiOS1 News, which was Brian. And when I got back, found out from our news director, Janine Rose, oh, he did fabulous, Joe. He was a wonderful, he did absolutely everything was going crazy, Joe, but Brian all held it together. So I knew that when I came to FiOS1 and Brian was the chief meteorologist, I knew it was one of those situations where, a soap opera actor, for example, or somebody who really is not well versed in the science of meteorology. I knew that I was coming to a place where there was somebody who knew what he was doing, but not only that, he knew how to do it and how to handle a pressure-packed situation. And let me tell you, if having a category, not a category, and what was it, an EF2 tornado?
It was an EF2, yeah.
An EF2, having an EF2 tornado go straight across the middle of Westchester County. And, here, the guy who's filling in for me did a fabulous job in covering it. That alone tells you, how credible and how impressive Brian really was. And so, thank you for not
Well,
the worst thing. The worst thing I would possibly have been
Thank you
is
for
if I
not
came
taking
back.
his job.
If I,
well, Joe, I can tell you, Joe is being very kind with some of those words. If we were to rewind a bit, though, the Brian that you guys had at Fios1 was a different on-air person than that one. Janine, if she said that, was also being very kind. You're talking about a guy that had less than 1 year of on-air experience at the time. It was a shaky one at best. We got through it, and I felt okay with it afterwards, but. That was the first tornado I'd ever had live on air, and for it to be one of the largest to hit Westchester County was nerve-wracking, to say the least. That one was, and I'll never. The reason I know this is because of what a memorable moment it was for me, and I had already signed with WBRE, and I was just about to leave. It was July of 2006 was the year, and the tornado actually crossed the Hudson. So it came across the Hudson just north of the Tappan Zee Bridge. And viewers really, at that time, News 12 really still had like really strong viewership. And the photos were, Brian Conybeare was the one in the studio with me. And the photos were pumping in like crazy. People were taking photos from the bridge and from areas of the tornado physically crossing the river. And I remember one specifically. I'll have to dig it up someday. I have it saved somewhere, where you could actually see like a small rowboat in the tornado as it was crossing the Hudson River. And then I believe where it caused the most damage was Hawthorne. But anyone who's from Westchester would know that spot on the Sawmill River Parkway where it crossed, because there was a huge path just ripped through the woods for years, actually, afterwards. And you could actually see on the guardrail, and it probably ended up getting hit by a tree because it really only was an EF2. It wasn't like it was an EF5, but the guardrail was like bent and twisted in that spot. But I never forgot the spot, because when I would drive past it, I would always see that path through the woods that the tornado took. And then I think it eventually went on to the like Hawthorne area, where there was some sort of warehouse that got badly damaged from it. And then as it went into Connecticut, I think it basically kind of fell apart from there. Or at least that's where it fell apart for me, because that's where my heart was able to come back out of my chest. And I said, okay, now it's Paul Piorik's problem and not my
but
problem.
that the thing is that the last thing you want to do is come back after somebody has filled in for you like a week or 10 days or whatever like that, and have the news director call you into the office and say, don't ever have that person back again. And
That would have been bad.
that was not the case. That was not the case with you, Brian. She was very. He said, "Oh, Joe, he did well. He did very, very good, and we were very happy to have him, and very fortunate to have him. You know, but
Well, Janine was always one of my favorites, and then to get to work with her again at FiOS was really pretty cool. So and I know you still keep in touch with Janine, right?
Janine, oh yeah, almost definitely. She's Aunt Janine. In fact, to this day, my kids, my son is 34, my daughter is 31, and they have known as far back as they could remember, when they were like little like 4 and 2 or whatever, when I first joined News 12, and they always knew her as Aunt Janine. Janine was the atypical news director. You'll get a news director who will call you at 2:30 in the morning. Hey, you got to get in here fast. Somebody's called out sick or whatever like that. Or, oh, we need you, whatever like that. Janine was never like that. If Janine called, she would actually be apologetic. Joe, I know it's the day before Christmas, and I know, Joe, that you must have so many things to do, but I have to ask you this, And by the time she was finished, she almost was like in tears, saying, "Yes, Janine, I will come in. Okay, no problem. Don't, She was that kind of a person, very considerate, very, like I said, she was one of us, really. She never took the role of, or rarely ever took the role of supervisor. She was always I'll tell you an example. We had a couple of people who had babies who grew into toddlers, and Janine would allow these reporters, one of them was one of our anchors, to go and pick up their kids at daycare, bring them to the station, and then for a couple of hours, these kids were running around in the studio, in the newsroom, or whatever like that. Now, what news director would allow that? A news director would probably call you and say, "Look, they're not our problem. They're your problem. They're your
This
kids."
director
Like
wouldn't
that.
even allow you to have children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was Janine. That was the way. And in fact, one of those reporters, her name was Jennifer Jordan, who won a couple of Emmys. And as soon as she won her Emmys, she immediately signed on with CBS Channel 2 here in New York. Now again, when she was with News 12, Janine allowed her to bring her little girl in and wander around the studio. Oh, look, oh, hi, how you doing? And when she went to Channel 2, she told the news director at Channel 2 about this and like what am I going to do? And I hope that you'll be considered. And the news director just in a cold manner said, "Well, this is your problem. It's not ours. You're going to have to figure out what you're going to do. We're not responsible. And of course, I hope you don't intend to bring your child in it." And when I saw Jennifer some months later, I ran into her and I said, "Well, here she is. Here she is, the big star of Channel 2 CBS News." She looked at me with a blank stare and said, "Joe, sometimes the grass isn't always greener on the other side." She may have been
It's
making more money. I'm sure she was making more money. But the thing is that one problem about taking care of her child and having the daycare and being able to bring her to the studio and having her run around and not have Janine say boo about that played a big role in, I think, Jennifer's overall thoughts about how things went in her life. Sometimes it's like a quality of life issue. And that was the kind of person Janine was. She was much different than most other supervisors or news directors that you'd find at most other TV or radio stations.
I'm
Je-
interjecting on that note.
well, you could tie this in because we have somebody on the chat board, Brandon Doherty. Thanks for hitting the tip jar, Brandon, and he wants to know you're up in Providence. How is it how is it working in Providence? And I'll just add to the fact that you're outside of you're away from the New York nonsense, so that's a plus. He wants to know how you like Providence.
Well, what I was tying it to was not leaving New York to come up here because I'm enjoying things up here. It was in reference to my decision to leave News 12 to go to the city to make more money. Exactly what Joe said. And I can tell you that I share the same sentiment. The grass is not always greener. And sometimes you have to think about quality of life.
Well, you went to
Now,
the Fox Weather Network to produce,
I
didn't you?
did. I did.
Yeah.
And it's not like I disliked the job, although I did miss being on air. But that commute is brutal. You have to factor that in because you're spending a lot more money. It's expensive to commute. And the number of hours you lose a day. My son it was literally, my son was born end of August. I accepted the job a week after he was born and I started a month later. Now, that time might not have been that big of a deal before him, but when you're not seeing him for so much time, I was like, did I make the right move?
Oh yeah.
Fiscally I did, but did I make the right move, for the family and
Yeah.
childcare
Tough
and things
call.
like that? Childcare is so expensive. So you have to factor that in. It was it was one of the toughest job decisions I've ever had. Usually everything would always be like, yes, absolutely, I want that. But I
Well,
did it, and I kind of missed local TV. I missed living close by. So everything up here has been really great to be, 10 minutes from the station. You do the math, it really eye opens you.
well,
You-
Brian and I were talking about this off camera, and Joe and I have talked about this before. When I stopped working, and you know, moved down here to Georgia, and I'm
You had the
been doing
longest
this.
commute of everybody.
Right. I was doing 126 miles a day. And I actually sat down and did the math in terms of the hours that I spent on the road. I spent 6 weeks of my life every year in my car. Okay.
Sounds right.
And
Sounds right.
when that number hit me, I was like, my God, that's insane. Now of course my commute is from the kitchen to the bedroom, uh, where my desk is, and
Living
you
the
know,
dream, baby.
well,
Living the
it's a wonderful
dream.
thing, to be able to earn some money, and not have to, leave the comfort of my mountain home. Which, by the way, the background, that's what my family room looks like, and I want you to
I was
know that.
like, boy, that dog is really good
Well,
boy. He is
my
so
dog
still.
is trained to stay still, and he's there, right. The fire flames, I got them where they just shoot straight up. Now the odd thing is, in all reality, obviously I'm joking. I tried to start the fireplace tonight, and I think the starter went, so I can't even do that. And actually, my dog, he's when we do the show, he comes into the bedroom and he lays down and he goes to sleep and doesn't make a sound, not a sound. He is he's either really being very good or he's very, very bored. So, but he's a great dog. I rescued him. He's a rescue. I got him after I moved here, about like 2 months after I was here,
He's
and
beautiful.
yeah, and he's been with me now for, you know three, almost 4 years, and he's half border collie, half Aussie. Okay, and I'm telling you, I have I have never seen a dog as smart as this dog is. He is really a smart dog, and he's a good dog. He's great with my grandkids. He just
You
loves
said he's
he's
part Australian Shepherd,
Yeah,
Joe?
he's
Yeah,
half Aussie and half border collie.
they're very smart. They're very loyal. They have a
Yes.
lot of energy.
Oh yeah, he does. He's better than when I first got him. He was 2.5 when I got him. Now he just turned 6, but he still has quite a bit of energy. I'm kind of curious because Jeff, because you're at a local station in a time where linear TV is been circling the drain. People are cord cutting and streaming, social media, and this is no longer a time where people sit down necessarily to watch an hour or 2 hour newscast, and I'm wondering, like, what you're seeing in
I
in,
mean,
in, in
working at an affiliate is a bit different than working at a 24-hour news network. I don't feel like we're going away anytime soon. Obviously, there are lots of different competitions other than our straight up competitors, but I think, I mean, working for an affiliate is just the sheer fact that people are going to advertise because of sporting events and
Yeah.
sitcoms and whatever. You're working at a news only, you know, and people are getting their news and other things elsewhere. Then you have a
I,
problem.
but
And
even
we've seen the problems at FiOS,
yeah.
and we're seeing history repeating itself a bit at News 12 these days.
Well, I mean, the number of eyeballs is going down, no matter whether it's an affiliate or whether it's a network. I just, so much has changed in the last, well, even the last 5 years. Well, let's make it even broader than that. In the last 10 years, I think so much has changed. I wonder what it's going to be like 10 years from now, um, with respect to newscasts and how they're produced, and you know
Well,
the
yeah,
the
it's not even so much. It's not. That's right. You hit it there. It's not so much the what, it's the how. It's the how the newscast is happening, and and everything you guys said before about how it used to be unionized. I vaguely remember that in my News 12 internship back in 2008. Very much everybody would mic you up. I remembered that. I remembered it at Pix too. Um, but yeah, it's so funny because it went from don't how dare you touch that to how dare you not touch that. Go pick up a camera, go
right,
shoot this. Go,
right.
you should know how to do everything. You should wear many hats. But do they always pay you for wearing those hats?
Well,
That's
News
the
12,
question.
News 12 was non-union. There
Correct.
was never, there was
Correct.
at least the time when Joe and I were there. And in fact, there was a guy at News 12 Long Island who attempted to break that and unionize News 12. Here's a name Joe probably hasn't thought of in a long time, Hardy Minzer. And
Right.
Hardy, I believe, was the guy who was going to try to get unionization to move in on News 12. And very quickly, Hardy found out the wrath of the Dolans, and very quickly was shown the door at News 12 after his attempt. So, um,
Yeah, the unionization didn't exactly work there. You know, you're right. It was, I remember that time. It was a very, tense time too, because people weren't making a lot of money and, you were kind of being worked to death. But yeah, I mean, it's just it picks. I tell you guys just an old story. Um, uh, Back, I think it was in the mid 1980s when IBEW, International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, they were the union for um, the technical people over at NBC, and when finally uh, they went on strike, when they finally settled it, one of the things that happened that was so instrumental in the demise of the union shop in television was, and remember now, this is like in 1986. The union agreed to surrender control over um, what was the early version of the PC. Okay. And when they did that, what they didn't realize was that, oh, 15 years later, or so, um, they news video was being edited on PCs. This is, one of the early 2000s. So now there was no need for um, the whole way they processed and did editing. They gave up control of the PC, and within 50, it took about 15 years for it to happen, but they basically gave their jobs away. All those people retired when the original editors and photographers retired. They weren't replaced, and I just I think about I think about where people are going to go to get their product. I just wonder, since the vast majority of the audience is no longer on the big networks, it hasn't been for quite a while. Just where does it go? Brian, what do you think? Where do you were in it, now you're out of it. You know, what do you think?
Yeah, well, it's funny. I mean, I think weather itself. So when the problem is that weather gets combined with news, right? That's how I see it. And so when you're combining it with news has all these different other avenues now, especially in podcasting, and especially even on social media and apps. News is being got in all these different ways, but I do still think there is a niche for a local weather person when stuff hits the fan. I think on your everyday weather, I think people are turning to the apps a lot. I'm not gonna discount that. I think that Weather Channel app is really taken over the game in many ways. But when all of a sudden we're like, okay, there's a storm coming, or okay, we're in drought situations, and there's something that people are actually concerned about, I think that's where you see them turn back to that local person, because I do think there's a bit of a trust value there that they don't get from the apps and from the random weather stuff that's just pulling data from the GFS or wherever it gets it from.
But are
Um,
we but are we part of when you say about getting it from a person you trust? And I understand what you're getting at here. I wonder, I wonder whether the new, I don't want, the new generation, whatever you want to call them. Us older folk were brought up with the notion of being loyal to one. You'd watch one newscast.
right.
Somebody's house was NBC, somebody's house. Oh, we only watch CBS or whatever. I wonder whether that's still, I know that's not the case anymore. I wonder sometimes whether a weather person's going to get lost in it. By the way, Addison is here now, so he's going to join. So we're now a five
Uh,
box. Um,
in addition to that, Joe, you may notice in the chat, our chat, I've added some photos of all of us together.
oh,
It's in the Zoom chat.
it's in the Zoom chat. Okay.
Yeah,
I have
because it wouldn't let me in the YouTube chat put a photo, but
Okay. All right. So I have to figure out now how to use the Zoom chat.
well,
So,
this is a test. This is a test of your abilities.
okay, hold on. Okay, I'm seeing chat. Okay, and there's a little number 5 on it. Show chat previews. Do I click on that?
Maybe.
Maybe. Okay, let's see what happens when I do.
I don't know. I'm in the Zoom. I just clicked on chat, but the thing is that you're running this off of a
Oh, I
program,
see
so
them. I got them. I got them.
yeah,
Okay, hold on a second. Oh, so
where's your
these
stuff
are
set?
cool. So, let's see what happens if I don't know if you can see it. I can
Yeah,
see
we
it.
are seeing that pop up on the
Oh, you are
side.
seeing it?
Yeah,
Is it on the screen?
I see that sidebar. Yeah.
Okay, you see
So
the
if you were to click
sidebar.
on one of them,
I don't
it
see
might
it. I'm
over.
trying to find it.
Trying to see how to get this on.
I'm seeing it on YouTube. I'm seeing the pictures
Oh,
on the side.
YouTube.
Oh, you
Okay.
are.
Let me go.
Oh,
Let
you
me go
are.
to the
Because
YouTube link.
come on, I'm not seeing it on YouTube. Oh, I
Yeah,
see
I'm
it on the
seeing.
side. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to bring this up full screen. I can download it,
People are saying we need one
reply,
more to make it the Brady Bunch.
add reaction.
I wonder if
Okay,
you just click on the photo itself, will it just get bigger?
it opens up. It opens up here. Oh, wait a minute. I know what I can do. I think I can do this. Hang on. I can maneuver my technology. Hang on a second. Let's see if it shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Got it. There's the team shot.
Oh, cool.
There it goes. It's up there now.
Oh, I see it. Yeah, I just saw it pop up right now.
Addison's on board. Addison, are you wearing socks?
I'm here with socks.
Okay.
With socks, good.
Any special socks?
Nope, just donuts. Nothing
A-
special today.
Addison, did you make a snow map today?
Oh, I dread
Oh
snow
wow,
maps.
that discussion. Oh,
Yeah. Oh,
Brian,
trust me, it got that dicey yesterday.
Jeff Addison, is that still a thing? Like, is that still like, like everybody has a thought, and we've got to make this snow map? Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
the beautiful thing of having a more compact weather team and not having 18 meteorologists. I don't know if you guys remember the News 12 campaign one time, the most meteorologists, and it would just be like 20 people jammed into one little screen. And I was getting messages from so many of my friends and family and viewers that would me being like, hey, let me ask you a question. Who are all those people on this promo? It's like, I've never seen those people in my life.
Well, and you guys know too, like what's interesting, and I'm sure Addison knows this for sure. Like I always took for granted that people knew there were multiple News 12s, and people don't always know that,
No.
Yeah.
And so when they realize, they're like, wait a minute, like there's another one in New Jersey and then one in Connecticut, and like yeah.
I will say, before we let Addison answer, I will say this from the outside looking in, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems that nowadays you guys have very good continuity, because in the past it was very hard to get in touch, and we would try our best, and I'd peek at Dave Curran's map, and I'd peek at Steve Teeling's map and be like, all right, I'm going to kind of not go too far away from these, even though the person watching in Connecticut or New Jersey is not going to somehow get wind of the Long Island map and be like, hey, wait a second,
Right.
match. But it seems like now there's you guys must have some kind of process that allows you to have good continuity with the maps. It almost looks like the same map, just with the different Earth highlight of the different region.
You are pretty spot on, Jeff. Our good friend Mike Rizzo set up a way to have multiple scenes across all the zones that will take one map, and you just move the lines in one spot, and then that carries over to the other spots, and then the Prism machine takes those images and uploads them somewhere for somebody. But yeah, that's how the maps all stay together, because when you see the News 12 New York, the tri-state map, that's all one big map, and then it gets disseminated down to the other zones. And so that's why like you're constantly like playing that little game of moving this line up here, moving that line down there, and then someone goes, "Wait, what about this? Maybe move that line there," and you're like,
Joe Rao could have.
what's one person doing?"
Joe Rao could have easily coordinated that because he's 5 steps ahead of everybody when it comes to technology, right, Joe?
Of course,
The man,
always on top of it.
the man with a rotary mobile phone.
Exactly.
By the way, I want to point out, do you guys see the shirt that Joe Rao is wearing? Do you guys still own that shirt?
Oh, yes, I do.
believe it was not given away or tossed. I believe I still have it.
Yeah, mine is still. It's so funny because as soon as I saw him, I said, "Damn!" Because I almost put it on too, and I didn't.
I don't even know. I never got one.
Well, that was on purpose. No, I'm kidding.
Brian's like everybody but him.
See, the funny thing is, I'm holding on to mine in hopes that it'll be worth something someday. But you guys are all diluting my chances at it being worth something.
Well, I used to always joke when they would revamp it, but of course that would be called FiOS 2.
You might get a letter from the company now demanding that you pay for it.
It's like, you still have a shirt, you're advertising for us. You got
Addison,
royalties.
I want to show you guys something which you may or may not remember or may not want to remember. But any of you remember this?
Oh, yes. The shoot on the frigid. It was like such a beautiful week outside of that day. And it was cold and cloudy. And we're right on the water. And it's like blowing off the water. And we can't wear jackets for obvious reasons outside of our suit jacket. So we were like, all right, that's good, right? They're like, no, we're going to take like 20 more.
Yeah, but you also got to see Joe and I perform
the Bugs Bunny Day.
The Bugs Bunny song.
We've seen a lot of performances from you guys over the years.
Is it?
To hit the heights, there's no rehearsing or nursing the part. You know every part. Right? There's a delay.
You guys in the mornings missed all of this antics in the afternoon and the evenings that me and Brittany saw.
Addison,
anytime there was a snowstorm, though, I got to catch up on all of it. So,
well, Addison, don't you miss those days where you would show me your snow map?
Oh yeah. And then you'd be like, "What is
and then
this?"
Joe would be like, "Oh, that's nice, Addison. We'll hang that on. We'll hang that on.
That's cute."
No, I would say,
"Oh, bless your heart."
Right. Well, yeah. I would. There was one time I think after the second or third time Addison showed me the map, and I said, "Addison, the map is absolutely perfect." But here's what you need to change.
Mm-hmm. Constant changes. So I'm just like, Joe's here. Time to make a snow map.
Yeah, exactly. No, but I always did it. I was always busting your chops.
Of course.
I did it in a loving way. Frank R on the chat board has a good question. It's a question that actually I was thinking about this afternoon, but I completely forgot.
But people are watching this with relevant weather questions.
Well,
the chat board is great, by the way. I'll give you guys credit. This show is spectacular. Like I get a big kick out of this chat board. This is really fun.
Oh,
I got to pull it up on my phone. I got to do.
Well, our chat, the people you see on the chat board, they're here every single night we're on, and it's wonderful.
That's spectacular.
They're really loyal. They all talk to each other. It's kind of like a family in there. With the things that go on in their lives and all.
I can see it.
No, it is. It really is spectacular. Frank R asked a question that I also come into my mind. How is AI going to change all of everything in the next 5 or 10 years?
I don't mind going first on that if you guys are all right with that.
Go ahead.
No, for sure. I know you have good thoughts about this, Brian.
Well, AI is interesting. But it's funny, as fast as they said it was going to develop, I don't know if it's there yet in the weather world. And if it is, I don't know where it's hidden at to find it. I do foresee in the future it probably making a big dent in the weather world, but are they going to use it to to create new models where the thing is learning and interpreting information better, because that's where I see it being useful. Like right now, like if you just went on to Chat GPT and you're trying to get forecast information out of it, like I don't find that useful really at all. If they develop a tool that can actually be used by meteorologists and by the public, that becomes really strong in it, sure. But I don't see it yet. I don't know if you guys disagree.
But,
I
well,
think it's
I mean,
interesting. I
go
find it
ahead.
interesting that now everybody's talking about Thanksgiving, and here we have the GFS sending this potential major headache off to the south of us. The European still is going with the idea that we're going to get hit by possible rain or snowstorm later Thursday into Friday. But then you look at the AI European. There's a European that is, I guess, using AI or mixing AI into its analogs or
It's
whatever.
all generated AI. AI is doing everything.
And the AI European is on the GFS side and saying, yeah, everything's going to go to the south. Don't worry about Thanksgiving. So it only confuses the issue, I think, at this moment more than anything else.
I'm praying that that's right. As someone who actually has, well, I'm working Thanksgiving morning, but I have that and I have a wedding, and it's just, God, the thought of having to come
You
and work
see,
a snowstorm after 2.5 months of no rain, and
you
then
see, Jeff,
this.
this is something you cannot appreciate now, but Joe and I can. And Joe was actually first with this, and then I begrudgingly, after trying to get back into television for a while, I said, you're right, Joe. My wife is right. Everything else. Why am I trying to get back into a situation where A, I have to beg to get a day off on a holiday. B, when there's a big storm coming, I have to drive in that. And I've drove in, and I'm sure Joe has too, more than a few snowstorms, and had to, with the windshield wipers going crazy. Even at FiOS1 on a couple of occasions, had to do that. I mean, like,
Oh, I had some white knuckle drives up the Hutchinson River Parkway to get into FiOS.
yep.
One time I was I was driving like a 2004 Honda Civic, which I don't even think had four-wheel drive.
Well,
But I was
I
like,
got you beat. I did it with a 2003 Toyota with 300,000 miles on it.
I
That
can tell
tank.
you with 100% certainty, Jeff, that did not have four-wheel drive.
all I know is the only reason it worked is because there was literally no one else on the road. So I could spin out all I wanted.
And then nobody would have ever found you. Or they would have found
Covered
you
in white
days later.
smolders.
I don't know if you guys remember. I don't know if you guys remember. It was on the day before New Year's Eve in 2000. It wasn't the Y2K. Y2K was a year earlier, but it was on a Saturday. It was December 30th, 2000, and there was a snowstorm. And I did not work on Saturdays, but I was called in to work that Saturday. I wake up. I look outside the window. It is snowing to beat the band. I was living in Levittown, Long Island at that time, and now here I am. I'm going to have to drive at like 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning when they never do anything in the morning for whatever reason, especially on a Saturday morning. And I'm driving in like what had to be at least 4 or 5 inches of snow to get onto the Northern State Parkway, to get on up into the Cross Island, to go over the Throgs Neck Bridge, to get. I mean, what a nightmare! You talk about white knuckle. And when I got to the station, News 12 Westchester in Yonkers, there was exactly one other person there, the guy in master control. I was the first and for a long time the only on-air personality there. And it wasn't until like 15 minutes before that the guy who normally did the Saturday morning news cut-in finally arrived. In, but I'm saying to myself, what the heck is this? Why am I doing this? Why am I subjecting myself to this? Did I actually want to do this when I was a kid? It's crazy. Now you
Yeah.
know why my hair is white. It's
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
obviously,
just
I
because
mean,
that.
having the young kids, and Brian knows what I'm talking about here. Well, I don't want to misspeak, Joe. I don't know when both of you got really into the heart of your. I know Joe was doing News 12. Joe Cioffi was doing News 12 in the 90s, and your kids were young then, so I'm sure you had
Right.
to
And
deal with
then
this. And
and
Joe,
and then
Joe
I had
too.
when I was working at Pix, but I was working weekends and doing
Yeah.
fill-ins, so it was easy. I was home. I was very lucky from that respect because I worked mornings when I did News 12. Hated every minute of it because it just physically took a toll on me. But I did
Oh
get to
yeah.
spend a lot of time with my kids. I was home on most days before we had a noon show. I was home by 11 a.m. When we had the noon show, I was getting home at 1, but I still saw my kids for, the afternoon. I'd pick them up at school, take them to soccer, or take them to wherever dance class, whatever what they were doing. So I was very fortunate. I was a whole lot luckier than the guys that were working 9 to 5 jobs and then throw in a 2 hour commute each way. I mean, they'd leave the house before their kids got up in the morning, and they would get home. Their kids were getting ready to go to bed, so they never saw their kids during the week. So I applaud you for making the time, to spend with your kids because you don't get that time back. Trust me, you don't get that time back because before you know it, they're gone to college, and then after they come back from college, they're on their own lives, and not willing,
Yeah,
they're
it goes quick. You snap your fingers.
it goes
How old are
quick.
your kids, Brian?
So my oldest is 12.
Oh.
And so, and it's, I have pictures. I think Geoff was even commented, or it might have been Addison commented on one. I have pictures of one of Kieran, my oldest, next to the Fios1 live truck. Him and I went to a Rockland Boulders game to throw out the first pitch, and him and I did it together. And he was a little guy. I mean, really a little guy, probably like 3 or 4 years old, and you snap your fingers, and now, like, he's in 7th grade, and before you know it, going to be in high school, and already
Jeez.
showing those teenager attributes and attitudes.
The sass is out in full force.
He sure is.
Addison,
I can. You know what? You don't want to hear something great? He's at the door, and I heard him go, "I am."
Come in, young man.
Addison, you're on the doorstep of parenthood, so you're taking all this in. You're writing down, taking notes here.
Very, very diligent notes being taken, and taking a lesson from all you guys. And while it hasn't quite hit me yet because we're still only a few weeks away, I'm definitely looking forward to it. When she does arrive, I'm looking forward to being a dad, being a girl dad, and definitely looking forward to a little bit of a break from the regular work grind. But I say break loosely because I know it's no picnic at home for parents of a newborn. So I guess
But
you're just trading one type of work for another, but it's something different. I'm looking forward to that.
You're gonna take what you taking a couple of weeks off.
Yeah. Yeah,
Good.
January and February.
Yeah, that's good. You got to you take the time. Really take the time. It goes by fast. I got 3 grandkids now, and
Great. Wow.
it's wonderful because I get all the fun stuff, and then when they get nasty, I just
Right.
kind of I just turn them. I turn them and I face them
Oh,
to their
yes.
parents. I said, "You created this. It's your problem."
Grandparenting has got to be the best thing ever.
Oh,
I
it
see
is.
it. I see it all the time. You're gonna give me some tood? Go back to your mom and dad.
Yeah.
I see it all. It's unbelievable.
Oh, and then they go to their grandparents to be rescued anyway.
I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a new grandparent. I had and of course, naturally, I keep everything on a weather level. My son and my daughter-in-law had our first grandchild on Groundhog Day of all days.
Oh, of course.
And they have gotten around the daycare part by having Renata and I watch him twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, and the other times her parents watch. Her parents actually come over to their home, and they live only like 7 minutes away from where we are in Putnam Valley. So on those days when we have him on his way to work, my son drops off uh, Julian, and we have Julian from like 6:30 in the morning until sometimes 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's just and as soon as he comes through the door and he gets all settled in, we both stand in front of him. We always say the same thing, Julian. It's the Nana and Pop Pop show.
That's
And
great.
I bring him down here. We have a big playpen. I'm talking to you from my office, my home office, but down at the other end of the house, is a big room, which we call the playroom. When the kids were growing up, they had all kinds of games. They have a ping pong table, an air hockey table up there, and everything. But now we have a huge playpen. And so when we're upstairs with the with Julian, Renato looked at me and said, "I think it's time to take him down to Pop Pop's Funhouse." And I take him downstairs and spend like an hour with him in the playpen and the bouncy bounce and everything else. So yeah, it's great. It's great. So it's strange. You, Geoff, and well, not so much Brian anymore, but Geoff, and of course now Addison coming on to having his firstborn coming up. For me, it's like a replay. It's like a replay now. It's like the 30 years after we had our kids. Here we go again now. Only this time it's the grandchild, and it's really great. The great part about it is being the grandfather and Renata the grandmother. When it gets out of hand, or when we've had enough of it, we can hand him right back to Joseph and say, "Here, he's yours."
And we're done here. There we go. And I got to say that my parents are definitely being going to be very thrilled to be grandparents. They couldn't wait for a grandchild to enter their lives. And,
so this is the first grandchild then.
This is the first one because I got a couple of gentle nudges after the wedding months later, being like, "It'd be nice if I was a grandmother before I die."
They waited a
Like,
month.
"Hey,
They
thanks, Mom."
They waited a couple of months to give you the nudge. Really?
Yeah, just about a couple months of me, like 2. Like, literally I'm married in October, come December, come January, come the holidays. It's like, "Oh, it's so great to have the family here. We're just missing a grandchild." I'm like,
Oh,
"We
good.
just got married."
You clearly, if you were Italian, you'd have to. They'd be asking you the next day.
Oh, trust me, my wife got that. Christina got that a bunch of times. And thankfully,
Well,
we have a grandchild.
Are
Her
you?
brother. They're like, "So you guys are married? Grandchildren, maybe?" We're like, "We just got back from the honeymoon." They're like, "Yes,
Well,
exactly." I'm like,
exactly. That's what you do.
"Okay."
That's what the honeymoon's for. Where did Jeffrey go?
He has a sign up that says he will be back in 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, we may not be here in 5 minutes.
And Joe Rao stepped away too.
The show be over.
That might be the perfect way to exit. Just fade to black.
Yeah.
Cast members are fading away.
Addison,
Yes.
So you went to Houston. I mean, for FiOS, you went to Houston, and then you came back to New York. Why?
Yeah, CBS 2 station there. Not CBS 2, CBS, just CBS. Why did I come back?
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I was just curious.
Well, and it's funny you say that, Joe, because there was the guy on here is asking about that. He says, "Addison, weren't you in Houston?"
Well, that's where I got the question.
Yeah,
Brandon asked me, and I saw an opportunity to come through here, and it's always been a dream to be at News 12, and station I grew up watching. And while a lot of people were saying, like, you're going from a less expensive part of the country to a more expensive part of the country, why? And I was like, well, we're getting married. That will help things. We're getting married up in Connecticut, so it's also helpful. Our family and friends are over there. And I was just like, I don't know how often this door opens to come back into your own home market and also being the #1 market. So I'm like, we got to take this chance. And it ended up working in my favor because after I left, the station didn't do too well for a while. They had to go through some changes. And it's kind of like you got the first life raft off the Titanic, so to speak. And I mean, the station's awesome. They're doing much better nowadays. But like I said, it was a wonderful opportunity to come back home for both of us. And so you never know when that door is going to open again. So
which News 12 are you doing?
So I was originally signed up for Long Island middays, and then that became more or less me floating around to cover other shifts when I wasn't on my shift. Like I covered Rich Hoffman for about 6 weeks when he was on paternity leave. I covered Sam Margeri when she was off on maternity leave for several months. And then eventually a spot opened up for the Hudson Valley Westchester channel at night. So they said, "Hey, we're going to be moving you over there." I was like, okay, I'm more of a night owl anyway. So that's what I've been doing for about the past 13 to 14 months or so.
Well, so do you have a separate?
I think my old stomping grounds.
Yeah.
I was there. I did that shift for 21 years. You got a long ways to go. You got a long ways to go, Addison.
Well, I would only be so fortunate
to stay there 20 years.
I think what's interesting about it is I feel like the only people who would make a comment like that to you are people who don't know you personally. Because like when you look at it, on paper. They'd be like, wow, he went from a really large market in Houston and now he's doing more local stuff on Long Island. But like I knew even when you had posted about it, like I didn't even ask that question because just knowing you, I knew your family was there. I knew your roots in New York. Like, and at the end of the day, you know, as far as we know, we're only here this one time, right? And so like if you have the opportunity to do what you love and then also be around your family and friends, to me, that's a no-brainer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah,
I only asked the question I asked was because
Oh yeah, no, I know why you asked it.
I have I haven't talked to Addison in a while, so I was he went to Houston and then he said, oh, he went to News 12. And I'm just wanted to understand,
Oh yeah, well the
and
reason I say
I totally get it. I totally get it. I mean, I worked in New Orleans, and I could have stayed in New Orleans, forever. But when News 12, when News 12 started, I got a chance to come back home and be in my home market, and it wound up leading me to Pix, and that was a dream come true for me. So, I totally get it. I totally get it. You want to be, you want to be near your family and and familiar places. So you're living on Long Island then.
Yeah, I'm living on Long Island. We have apartments not too far from the station in Bethpage, and
Oh, okay.
eventually would like to get a house one day when the market becomes more sane and sensible. But for now, like you said, it's to have that aspect of life that you can't ever, walk away from. Meaning, like, this is so good, this is awesome, I love it. Like, you have the schedule you want, you have the hours you want, you have the pay you want, and you're in a market or part of the country that you can call home. If it happens to be your home area, it checks off all the boxes. So definitely was a worthwhile venture to come back up. And also, to be honest, it bothered me a couple of times when I'd be working weekend nights. And here's a beautiful Saturday afternoon. I gotta go to work. I mean, I know we all gotta do this at some point in our careers, but it's like, oh, the missus is sitting at home, just relaxing. Meanwhile, we can be out and doing stuff, whatnot. And I was like, I wish I could spend more time with her.
Are
On
you
the
going to be
weekends on her
working
off
on
time.
Thursday,
So
Addison?
wish I could.
You working on Thursday, Thanksgiving?
Not Thanksgiving. I'm working Black Friday.
Could you tell me whether or not those who are working on Thanksgiving at News 12, are they going to be
Fed.
compensated with a nice meal there, or is it just, another day?
So in the past on holidays they have ordered. It varies from where they order from, but they will order as if the place is fully staffed. So there's a plethora of stuff
Oh,
for
good.
about 5 or 6 people that are here. And I hope that on Black Friday there's still leftovers and they're in the fridge. So I'll be like, ooh,
Well,
there's always
there's always I always wondered how many pizzas over the course of my career were ordered. Um, I think I remember somebody did math for News 12. It was like 10,000 pies or something uh, over the course of
Yeah,
20
but this is
years.
not, we're not talking about on Thanksgiving, for example, we're not talking about pizza. I mean,
No, I know,
I,
but a full turkey, the full turkey, because I remember they
Yeah.
used to do that at News 12,
I once
and also at
told
FiOS.
Renata, I once told Renata, I said, well, I've got the day off, but in a way, I kind of wish I was staying here because you ought to see the food that they're, I mean, they just take the break room and they'd have everything, set up
Well,
for,
I will say this about FiOS: they did feed us well.
Yeah, we did
oh,
get food.
yes.
that
Every
was
other
They really
Friday,
did.
Pizza Friday. Remember those?
you either
Pizza
got paid or you
Friday,
got
and
fed.
yeah. So
Now, I've got a question for you guys, and I get this question often from people like coworkers and different things that knew what I used to do for a living, and they would ask, is there a particular moment in your television career that you think back at as like, man, that was kind of like the pinnacle. One of the things like I rank like the highest, whether it's somewhere you did the weather from or somebody that you interviewed, or was it a giant storm that you were a part of? Like, do you guys have like that one moment in your head, or is it like just a multitude of different things?
I would say for me, it was the blizzard of '96 because
The
I
January one?
yeah, the January
Yeah.
'96 because
Yep.
I worked from the time the very first flake fell to the time the very last flake fell. So basically, I worked almost 36 hours straight. I think I was able to.
Ooh.
I got like I was able to sleep 4 hours. Um, that has always been, um, in my mind, for me, that was probably one of the best weather experiences from start to finish, not just from the broadcast end of it, but from the forecasting end of it. Um, being, being that I went in and, um, I went in and told the powers that be days before that this was coming. And you got to remember, this was at a time where uh, you didn't really get bombarded. You don't get bombarded. You didn't get bombarded with information and all the different outlets. You didn't have people posting maps, you know,
Right.
10 days in advance. I mean, it was,
Hmm.
I was one of the few people that was able, that would do something like that. And, so they knew I meant business when I went in there because I would never, you know, I wasn't one to
Right.
panic.
Yeah.
So I was proud of myself for the forecast because the forecast was perfect, and the TV work that I did, um, uh, to that. So that stands out in my mind. Uh, I mean, there were numerous storms. Um, there were numerous storms that I worked in picks, but the '96 blizzard was for me,
For me, I
and,
think
and
it was.
and it's on YouTube, by the way.
Yeah, that's right. You see a
I've
young
seen
Joe
that
Cioffi on
actually.
YouTube. Yeah, for me, it was. We had a former hurricane, a tropical system, Floyd, that was in September of 1999, and that absolutely I mean, you couldn't go anywhere for 24 hours in the Hudson Valley or Westchester because all of the parkways and every parkway has a body of water associated with it. The Hutchinson River Parkway, the Sprain Brook Parkway, the Sawmill River Parkway. I mean, all of these parkways were flooded out. You couldn't go anywhere. And we were on all through the afternoon and on well into the nighttime hours. But the thing that struck me about that storm over all the others was it was for the one and only time we ever did this. And I don't know why we didn't do it again, but we actually opened up the phone lines and we had people calling us in to ask questions. I'm sitting at the anchor desk with Brian Connie Bear and Janine Rose, whatever, and people are calling in and asking questions, weather-related questions about when will the highest tide come, when will the rain stop, when do you think this? And I'm sitting there, and some people were like really on the verge of like losing it on the air. We had to actually, I remember actually I had to tell one guy, says, take it easy, you're going to get through this, everything is going to be fine, everything else. I remember that as a major event in terms of weather because it completely affected everybody. I mean, a lot of people talk about snowstorms paralyzing the area. If you live in Westchester or the Hudson Valley, especially Westchester, what really paralyzed everybody were days when we had heavy rain and the Bronx River Parkway would flood out or the Hutchinson River Parkway would flood out and nobody could go anywhere. That really was what kind of crippled or paralyzed the commute. It wasn't so much the snow and the ice, although those were bad too. But with Floyd, I remember we had Dr. Jerry Thaler, who passed on several years ago. He was a climatologist and a cooperative observer for the National Weather Service for like 50 years. And he reported in less than 3 hours up in the Yorktown Heights area over 12 and a half inches of rain in
Wow.
less than 3 hours. That gives you an idea of what Floyd did. And I think Floyd actually came into the tri-state area and interacted with a stationary weather front which kind of energized it. Maybe the Baroclinic ribbon got more active, or I don't know. I don't remember exactly what happened, but it rained for several hours to beat the band, and that just totally and completely just paralyzed everywhere, every which way you went. And that's when News 12 really, that's when we really, I think, did a surge. Because I think everybody in the world, it seemed, was tuned in on us to find out the latest information.
I'm, I got lucky. One other thing,
We
a
can
guy,
talk about that,
there's
Bud.
somebody on YouTube. YouTube has a YouTube channel. It's called Dad's Videos. Okay, Dad's Weather Tapes. I'm sorry, at Dad's Weather Tapes,
Okay.
and he's got. I mean, if I needed copies of my shows, from when I worked at Pix, he's got like all of them. Or
Wow.
not all of them, but he's got a lot of them. I was shocked actually that they're up there. So at least I do have a source. If I ever want to go, uh, look at some old storms stuff. And this was stuff that when I first found this, I got, I've just forgot. I mean, I forgot that I worked this storm or that storm, and he's got a lot of the snowstorms that happened in the early 2000s. So that was, that's pretty cool. So I didn't expect, that I didn't expect that somebody would have collected, but apparently this guy taped all these weather people over the course of uh, over the course of 10 or 15 or 20 years, and it's not just me. He's got a whole bunch of people. Uh, he's got one from me from 1999 from Pix. I'm just kind of scrolling through it now. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that out
Yeah,
there.
that's pretty cool, though. That's pretty cool.
Hey, we're coming up here on, um, we've been on for an hour and 35 minutes, which is great, except for the fact that you're passing my bedtime and and Joe's
There's no
bedtime.
bedtime for Joe. You guys stay up all day, all night.
You know, I got to tell you, I should have done this a while ago, and I was thinking when I put it on the chat, that's still there. The old FiOS. There was the
Mhm.
official FiOS weather chat, which is still there, and
Dude,
then
it still has the
and then
same
there's the
logo too.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
then there's our secret chat that we had, and I was trying to start a chat, and I suddenly stumbled on the secret chat. It's like, okay, great, they're all here in one place. And a couple of weeks ago, and I was thinking, it's 5 years now. We'll see if we can get everybody together and just have a little bit of fun. And I'm glad that you guys, Brittany Borer, responded. She would have loved to have come on, but she was traveling today, and Lauren Richardson, she's got to work tomorrow morning, so she had to get up early.
Mhm.
But I'm glad we did this because this is a blast. It really
Yeah,
is.
this was fun. This
This
was
was a
Same
a lot
lot
of
of
here.
fun.
fun.
I think that Jonathan Cubitt, he's with us
Yes,
Connecticut
and
mornings.
Jonathan
He would,
also.
I'm sure he would love to get on here as well. So I'd love to have another one of these. Hopefully not 5 more years from now, but another roundtable discussion with us and catching up. It's been a long time since I've seen you guys. I mean, I saw Rayo not too long ago at the WestCon Fest, and I saw Jeff
Yeah.
2 weekends ago. But the rest of you,
I
I
hope
haven't
that
seen
was
Brian.
good,
I
by the
haven't
way.
seen Joe in a while.
I was
Hmm?
supposed to go to that, but I couldn't. I had a wedding later that day, and it got too crazy. So
Well, you know what would be fun, and I know this would be hard for Mr. Cioffi, but next year I'll try and make a point. If you guys want to go, I'd love to go to that. That'd be a real cool place to kind of all meet up.
well, what about the spring, you guys? We have the annual the Northeast Storms Conference. It's in Albany this year.
Is that right? Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah, you know what? I'll forward you the link after we wrap things up here. But I just got it sent to me the other day.
Well, Joe, you have the private jet, right? So you could fly up. And
Oh yeah, sure.
Sir
I,
Cioffi, always ready to
I
fly.
I have to drive. I'm not big on flying anymore. So well, you know what it is when because I'm 2.5 hours from the airport in Atlanta. Uh,
right.
so I got to drive to Atlanta, find a place to park, get there an hour or two beforehand. It's just easier for me to just get in the car and just go. I mean,
what is it, like 15 hours, Joe?
well, to Long Island, it's about 14, 15 hours. I mean, I just did Baltimore a couple of weeks ago for my daughter's wedding, and that was 10 hours. Um, and that was actually fairly easy uh, overall. I can do 10 hours now. I don't know if I could do 15. I'd have to do it
Yeah.
with
Or you get to New York and then you still have to keep going.
oh, I know.
Albany's a haul.
No, I could avoid New York if I were to go to Albany. I could go up I-81.
Yeah, you could. You could just
You
stay.
know,
Yeah.
but I'd still probably want to just
That's a haul, though,
stop
man.
for the
That's a
mean,
overnight.
haul.
I wish I was at one point in time in the Mid-Atlantic. You could have joined up with me, and we could have carpooled. That would have
Yes.
been the way to do it.
Yes, but it's getting harder for me to travel. In general, I just and I've had to, like I said, I really don't like to fly. I could fly out of Atlanta. I could fly out of Chattanooga. Chattanooga Airport is actually closer, but
Right.
to fly out of Chattanooga costs you a fortune because you got to connect and
Unless you find almost an adjoining regional airport, like we have TF Green here, or as you formerly called it affectionately, T Addison Green.
That's
Uh,
why did I call him T Addison Green? Can you
because
remind me?
someone who wrote the lower third didn't put
Ah,
like a space in between the end of the sentence,
the anchor, yes,
or
that's right.
Yeah, there was
or
Anchor trying for a demo session, and you
And
could
and
hear it from the control room. It was like a meteorologist T Addison Green because the T went to the
and
next line over. And we're
that's what
like,
it was. The
what?
prompter.
and that same anchor, by the way, was doing the 10 o'clock show, and this anchor could not pronounce my last name. So you know how we used to pre-record the open and everything else. I think it was like 15 takes before she finally got it, and it was. I mean,
Sounds about right.
Mac's not on the chat board, but he'd remember that because I think he was there for that fiasco. And I just stood there, and they were all apologizing. The crew was apologizing to me, and I'm like, "Look, my paycheck's the same. It doesn't matter whether I'm here 3 minutes or 30 seconds. It doesn't cares, you know." And that was kind of my attitude toward the end. The last few years, it's just like, really, you know what? I do my work. I go home.
That's it.
Yeah. I
Call me
don't.
whatever you want as long as the check clears.
Right. Don't get wrapped up in the ego crap because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Well,
Uh,
anyway, I was just saying, if so, like from a small regional airport like we have, like a flight to South Carolina happens to be $85, but if you wanted to go to like Chattanooga, it's like $300 just
right.
because
Yeah. It's like
they
all
have
these
their.
crazy.
Maybe you're lucky. Maybe Chattanooga and Albany happen to be partners or something.
I'd have to look, but I don't actually. I do. I'm okay with driving. I like to, look at
Well,
scenery and
maybe
see things.
maybe we could find one like where are they doing the national one, or is that
Oh, that's a good question, Brian. I believe
because
it
they
is
just did
in.
Boston, so it might be Mid Atlantic somewhere.
Hold on, I have it up right here. It's in
I don't even know if
January
I'm
though,
dating
right? I
myself
believe.
on that. Like, I feel like they just did Boston, unless that was the
No,
year
you're
before.
thinking of you're thinking of the pandemic year. They had AMS 100 in Boston.
Yeah,
Unless
I knew as soon as I said it, I was like, that probably wasn't this year.
unless you're talking about maybe the broadcast only ones, they somehow
I don't. To be honest, I don't know what I'm talking about, Jeff.
It is in. Oh, this is an outdated list.
By the way, I'm going to send you guys. I'm going to post a link on the chat board. This is This was a pics show from January 18th, 2003. Okay, just because I want you to just watch it. But after we sign off, because I want you to see how young I was. It was only 21 years ago, but and by the way, here's a shot from Chuck Cardillo, who's one of our regulars on the chat board. He lives in Delaware County on the 3,000 feet up in New
Okay.
York. And
Oh, not the other Delco. I
no,
thought I'm a PA.
no, this is
I was like, there's
this
definitely
is
not that elevation there.
this is in the
No,
Catskills.
yeah.
And I just put a shot. This is outside his house. They had 18 inches of snow
Holy
from
moly.
Tracks.
and there's a shot here of his house coming up. You'll see what it looks like from up there. I mean,
I miss snow, but not like that.
Train
yeah,
spotter in High Point, New Jersey, which is by the triple point of New York, New Jersey, PA, was like 22 and a half inches and counting.
Yeah.
We're like, how the hell did
Oh,
that
we
happen?
mentioned that the
We
other
didn't
We,
night.
have
we
that.
had about 5 or 6 inches at my house in Dutchess County.
Up on the
The
north wall over there.
The
Yeah.
elevation at High Point is 1,803 feet.
Right.
And that
Yes.
obelisk, or that it looks like the Washington Monument. And I've been there
Yes.
a couple of times. That's pretty high up. So
Yes.
I said the other day, I said, if anybody's going to get bombed with snow, it's going to be High Point High Point, New Jersey, High Point
And they
State Park.
did.
And by the
And-
way, Port Jervis, which is just a stone's throw from High Point, got over a foot of snow. So
Yeah, Vernon,
Well,
New
that's
Jersey.
what these people get. That's what they get for living so thinking they're so high and mighty and looking down on us all. You know, that's what you
Yeah,
get.
well,
Well,
hi-
I
1,000
was-
plus feet looking down.
I was crossing
Peasants.
the high elevations on the Taconic State Parkway this morning on my way to work. And at one point, for about 1.5 to 2 miles, snow-covered roadway.
Nice.
Oh God, that
You know,
that roadway is not fun to drive on when it's not snowing.
Yeah.
Well,
exactly.
parts of it anyway.
Especially north of Route 6.
Yes.
You're on the
Yep.
Taconic. Once you get north of Route 6, then it becomes curvy and swervy. And you're right. Even
Oh,
when
I know, Joe. You know exactly where I'm talking about. So.
yeah, on a dry, sunny day, it gets a little tricky. Don't even
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about
all the roads where I live are like the Taconic. In fact, they're worse. They're worse than the Taconic. You can't take
Wait, where you
there.
live now?
Oh yeah, there are roads here through the
Oh,
mountains where you.
I think you're talking about from on Long Island, which I never understood. You made that drive 5 times, twice a day, 5 times a week.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is a long drive for
Oh,
traffic.
before you
Oh, yeah.
joined, Addison, we documented how much
I have
time of
this-
our life we wasted.
I have this
Car.
picture in my mind, Joe Cioffi, of you getting to a certain point where you just have to get out and start hiking it to your house.
Well,
Well, it's a mile from here, folks.
That's it.
no,
Gotta
I
travel
will.
on foot.
I will tell you though, it's not a mile, but I live on where I live. It's dirt roads. I have a dirt road, so the mailboxes are out by the main road, and my house is maybe now I wouldn't say a quarter of a mile. It's like an eighth of a mile
Yeah.
from there. But you have a lot of houses out here that are like that, where it's a dirt road, turn off. Uh, that's not that wide. It's only wide for one car, and people are going in both directions. But there are main roads here where you're climbing up to 4,000 feet, and then you're going down S turns where you can only do like
Ooh.
if you do more than 20 miles an hour, you think you're gonna go off the cliff. So I hear you. I love the Taconic because I used to drive it up to Saratoga, up to Albany, and then just get on Northway from there because it's such a scenic drive. But you ought to try the roads here. There's a road. One of the mountains here. It's called the Tail of the Dragon, and that kind of describes.
That's how you know.
That's how. Yeah.
That's how you know.
Chuck
Description right there.
Cardillo,
You don't have
thanks.
to say any more.
No.
That's how you know.
Well, it's known for motorcycle people to go up there and drive that road because it's such a challenge. Chuck Cardillo, thanks for hitting the tip jar, and your pictures were great. And guys, I think we should wrap it up because I'm serious.
Yeah.
It's now, I gotta go. I gotta go to bed. Okay,
Joe's like, I'm done. I can't do this
I'm
anymore.
done. So,
I gotta go back to work too, guys. So
yeah, so we'll do this again. We'll get a common day, and if we could figure out some common place to meet up one day, we'll figure that out.
Rabbit, when are we going to do this again?
Yeah,
Well, maybe we'll do it again sometime in the near future. All right,
Yes.
Doc? Hey,
All
you
right.
might, Rabbit. You might.
Your minds.
Joe's making Mel Blanc very proud.
Brian, Addison, Jeffrey, thank you for being here tonight. And Joe, it's time to go to sleep. So we'll see
It's been
everybody.
real, guys.
Thank you.
Miss
We'll see
Ballerite
everybody
says
on
it-
Sunday.
Miss Ballerite says it best on the chat board. Joe C., you need to go to pee.
Well, that too. That too. I'm kindly holding it in, but I'm beginning to squirm. So
Joe and Joe, you guys are the best. We love you
Yes.
guys. It was awesome.
Love you guys.
Check-
man. It's been
I
awesome.
can't go by without referencing you, Terence Cardinal Bryan, Archbishop of New York. I salute you, and we'll see you. We'll see
And
you
by
guys
the way,
soon.
Brian,
Yes, sir.
Renee sends her regards, or maybe her disregards.
It looks like she also said, Joe, that's still Verizon property. You need to send it back.
Right.
Your shirt.
Addison
And,
will always remember. Addison will always remember. I gave at 3:00. Either Joe or I or Addison, we had to give a briefing, an editorial meeting before the shows began about what the weather was going to be like. And there was that one day I told him in a couple hours we may be in line for some severe weather, some severe thunderstorms. And I went through the whole litany of what could happen. And here's Renee sitting there going like, all right, thank you very much, Joe. Now on to anybody have it on the crime scene? And she like it totally went over her head. An hour and a half later, we had like a massive thunderstorm, lightning, thunder, hail, heavy rain. We're like, and Addison and I, we were back in the newsroom. And here comes Renee storming and saying, "Why didn't anybody tell me that this was going to happen? What is that?" She's yelling at the two of us like, you remember that? Addison?
I was there.
I remember that. Yeah, that still happens to this day. That you'll go ahead and do your editorial briefing, and it's like, okay, thanks. Next, and then next thing you know, it's like, what do you know about that? I'm like,
And I mean, I had gone through that innumerable times with other news directors and executive producers. Addison, you look like a look of fear because you had just, you'd only been around for a couple of years. So there's this kind of, I'm just looking at those things. Don't worry, let it blow over.
Yeah.
Let it blow over.
All right, guys.
just keep blowing over.
Jeffrey, love you. Addison, love you. Brian, love you.
Love you guys
Joe,
as well.
I'll see you Sunday. Nighty night, everybody.
Nighty night.